Next, we have the revised fire station building project presentation. We have Chief Duffy. If you could please come on up.
And can I do a little intro,
Yes, please.
Tiffany? And I'll get out of the way in just a moment. But as folks are coming up to the mics, I just thought I'd give a brief introduction. As we all remember, and for those in the community that may have forgotten or weren't here, the fire station, the single station that we have at Union Street, is out of date. It's too old, it's too small, the site is too small. So we did a lot of good work over the last few years, and we hired Schwartz Silver Architects along with our building committee, and we proposed a new fire station building project that would be at the former Lincoln School site. That project was tagged at approximately $33.2 million. We proposed it in the form of a debt exclusion last spring, and as we all remember, it failed at the ballot and at town meeting. The feedback that we heard primarily was everybody understands the need for a station. I didn't really hear anybody arguing we don't need one. The concerns really generated from voters that we heard mainly around the cost and the impact that it would have on property taxes, as it would be funded through a debt exclusion. And the biggest feedback we got was to go back, come up with a plan B, come up with something smaller, most importantly, less expensive. So we're going to get into all that tonight, but that's really the impetus for this. Some might say, voters already said no, why are we still talking about this? And we're still talking about it because just because it was rejected by voters doesn't mean that the problem got fixed. The problem is still there, and it's only getting more expensive the longer that we wait. So I think you'll be really impressed with the presentation tonight. The architects are going to do most of the talking, but Chief Duffy and I will have a few things to add here and there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Trafficante and Kyle Winston. They'll get it started. I'm going to give you this keyboard, and you can just use from the arrow keys to go back and forth.
Okay, thank you, Doug. And thank you all for seeing us. My name is John Trafficante. I'm the principal in charge at Schwartz Silver for this project. I'm here with Kyle Winston. Kyle's the project manager. A couple other people in our firm. You could probably advance that. Ethan and Stuart. Some of you may have met them in the past. They've worked on this project as well. We have worked with the chief in the town since 2017 on programming and different studies, site studies and such. This project, what we're showing today is kind of the work that we've done over the last 6 or 8 months, looking at different ways to satisfy the needs of the town in terms of the station. So we've looked at kind of reusing the station. We've looked at adding on to the station, renovating and adding on to the station. We've looked at the Church Street site, looking at other options over there, reducing the square footage over there to kind of what we think is the bare minimum for a functioning fire station for a town this size. And so with that, maybe just say a couple of things. If you all have questions, please feel free to interrupt. We kind of hope this is a discussion we will present, but certainly if you have questions, let us know. Schwartz Silver has been in business since 1980. We've been doing civic work for almost 40 years now, so we understand the predicament of kind of getting buildings built in towns and trying to get the building to be the exact right size and on budget and on time. So, we also have a lot of experience doing fire stations. Our first fire station was done in, I think it was 1990 maybe, for the town of Wellesley. So we've been doing fire stations for a long time as well. And on this study, we teamed with a firematic expert. I think he made up the word firematic, but it's he's done over maybe 150 fire stations. So we worked with him on programming throughout these studies. So there's we brought in someone even more kind of experienced than we are in fire stations to make sure that what we provide and what we're proposing is actually what is needed by the town. So kind of with that, I think what I would like to do is turn it over to Kyle. Kyle will kind of go through our process, and then certainly, Chief,
Yeah, I'm
pull up
good.
next
Yeah.
thing, but
Chief, do you just want to say quickly, mention the committee?
Sure, just, you know, a lot of the work that's been done through this whole process since, you know, just around the 2017 mark has been done by the Fire Station Building Committee. You know, people throughout the town that have given us some great ideas and have helped us. Deputy Chief Tom Heaney is on that. Fire Lieutenant Charlie Williams, who's also a town resident. Retired Deputy Chief Jim Killinger. He's a town resident. Architect Chris DeFilippo. I felt it was important to get Chris's input where he does have a good, strong sense of the architectural business. Another town resident, Jean Blaney and Susan Egan. So Jean and Susan were initially brought into this because we were looking at maybe trying to combine the Rockland Rec with the fire station in one giant building on that Church Street site. It didn't work. We ended up having to kind of split the projects. Jean and Susan have remained on the building committee, you know, which we're very appreciative of, and they bring some great ideas. So, you know, both as residents, so I thank them. And our newest member, Austin Clark. Austin is a college student at Boston College. I met Austin through a fire cadet program through Social Vote Tech. You know, he wants to become involved in local politics, and we felt this was a great foot in the door for him. And first meeting, he's already, you know, coming up with great ideas that we've added into this project, into this presentation. So, you know, we appreciate his input as well. So I thank them. They do a ton of work, and we couldn't do it without them.
I might ask you to speak again in a second, Chief, but I'll just say quickly, I'm Kyle again. We began this whole process going back into the existing station. Going back into the existing station and just sort of comprehensively documenting the deficiencies. So these are just some snapshots from the existing conditions report, which can be provided in full. It's a large PDF. And with the chief, we documented some of the specific conditions visually in photographs. Did you want to speak to some of these?
Sure, and I don't want to bore everybody. You know, I think everybody's heard some of the existing conditions that we suffer through at the fire station. Some of them pictured here. I'll just run across the top row real quick. So, when the fire station was added to in '78, there was no real main entry door. We can watch people on the cameras trying to walk around our station to find where that entry is. It's kind of hidden. That's what that top left picture is. You know, we usually have to kind of go out there and kind of guide them in. Additionally, it's right by an apparatus bay. So as trucks are coming in and out and people are walking in and out, it does create a pretty big hazard for anybody with foot traffic. And you know, a modern fire station, you wouldn't be entering in off the apparatus floor. It should only be firefighters for safety reasons. Picture number 2 on the top row from the left, that's just one of our storage rooms. We keep our breathing cylinders there, spare equipment, our fire alarm equipment for the municipal fire alarm system. And as you can see, we're overflowing the shelves in there. Picture 3 is our downstairs at the back of the fire station. That is kind of off of the seating area where the firefighters kind of congregate and wait for calls and eat lunch, breakfast, sometimes dinner. So you can see their microwave, which is tucked in next to the hazardous chemical cabinets. So must add some good flavoring. That last picture, top right, that just shows the space between the exterior wall. That's looking down the wall towards Union Street along the wall at the library. That's where, you know, we keep our firefighting foam, as well as there's gear lockers, there's hazardous materials response equipment in there to mitigate hazardous materials, and then other gear lockers, firefighting gear lockers. So, you know, this is where the firefighters keep their spare uniforms. You can see a pair of pants there, which are somebody's, you know, gonna put on at some point as a change, that are probably diesel and soot filled already. Bottom left is the bathroom for the executive assistant. We've run out of file storage space, which has overflowed into her bathroom, which, you know, I don't think is fair for anybody. Bottom row, picture 2, that is the training meeting area. You know, much of the stuff there that you see, the screen, the projector, that was all gathered out of the Jefferson School before it was torn down, so that we could, you know, be able to hold some training with our own. You know, one of the things that, it's in one big massive area, which is including in, you know, the upstairs meeting area for the firefighters, the TV room, the kitchen, so it's one big area. So there's no, we couldn't hold a private training up there or any training without other background noises being bothersome. Third picture on the bottom row, third picture is just an old skylight that we have. Just the amount of heat that comes in and the inefficiency of that building. You know, we've taken some, I don't know, some homemade remedies to block off that light. It used to be a blue top, now we're using, you know, cardboard hazmat boxes and an old radiator that doesn't work anymore. Last picture, bottom right, that's our basement. That is literally, you know, all shelving now. It's kind of footpaths to get through. We've just run out of space for storage. Much of that storage is equipment for the new engines when they come in, so we hope to gain some room down there, but a lot of it is, you know, required equipment since COVID that we've gathered for isolation and, you know, just keeping ourselves safe when we respond. Thank you. Next slide. So this was the big slide that I wanted to show, and show why this fire station doesn't work anymore. If we, yeah, thanks. So currently, right now, this fire truck does not sit in this location. This is one of our older fire trucks that sits on the new side. However, we have two new fire pieces of apparatus on order. These fire trucks aren't getting any smaller, and they're going to, just 2 new orders are going to have to go on the 1978 side, which leaves our third truck that we currently run now becomes the spare. Well, we're going to have to put that over on the 1938 side. One of really the only spots it can go in, one of 2 spots, is this spot here. If we have to put it here, you cannot walk from one side of the station to the other. So we completely cut off the station. I don't even know how people would get, firefighters would get from the watch room or from the back, you know, little table area that they wait for calls at, to get over to that, to get over to the apparatus. So we're going to have to come up with some ideas. But this I just want to get a sense of how tight this fire station really is with new fire apparatus. It just wasn't constructed for trucks this size.
And
Thank
I
you.
think even in this photo, you can see the door on the right-hand photo. That is the door that the public would have
Correct.
to come in.
Yes.
So the public would have to come in, and they can't get across.
Correct, yeah, the public couldn't get across if they were to go up to my office or to the deputy's office or to our meeting area.
You know, we've looked at a lot of fire stations over the years, and this, I have to say this, in terms of space, this is one of the most space fire stations that we've ever been involved in. It really, the trucks are pinned in there. The area around the trucks are dangerously close to the wall. If anyone is standing next to a truck as it departs, they're in danger of getting hit by the truck as it leaves the station. So, you know, I hope some of these photos illustrate how serious a condition this is.
And I'll just add, we'll come back to this at the end, because the third option of the 3 we'll present, I should say the third is just an interior renovation of the building, so a lot of these problems will persist, including like the one entrance door, the oversized apparatus, not oversized, but undersized space. So we'll come back to some of those things. But just, so this is all the work we kind of did leading up to the design. And then quickly to share a schedule, unless Doug, you wanted to add to this, or to, yeah, go ahead.
Want to go first?
Sure, no, well, so the work we've done thus far began back in 2017 with programming then, of course, last year, the first schematic design proposal, and that ended in February. And then we began this effort in February of this year. And then so we're now here we are in September. And then beyond the September date are 2 potential paths forward, depending on when a town meeting and town vote would occur.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so that was, the purpose of this slide was to show that, we've been talking about having a November special town meeting. We're going to have that on the agenda later tonight. I'm anticipating that you're going to vote to call that meeting. And as I put several of those schedules before you in prior meetings, it is possible, if you want to pursue one of these recommended projects, and put it before voters. It is possible to do it at the November special town meeting, but I'm not recommending that, and I think our entire committee is not recommending that either. We think it's really better to wait until the spring town meeting in May. That'll give us more time to do a lot more outreach, hit all the different parts of the community that's interested in this project and engaged. And as you can see from looking at the time frame, so instead of starting in the spring, we're just, starting a few months later in the summer. But I think those extra months will really be valuable to help us get good traction with the community. So that's the purpose of this, is really to show the site. If we did it Springtown meeting, we could be looking at the summer of '28 for having it complete and moved in. Thank you.
So I wanted to interrupt with something. I just wanted to say that the police station was completed like 20 years ago, Chief, is that right?
Yeah, a little more.
A little more than 20 years ago. And no pun intended, but the fire station has been put on the back burner since then. So the needs of a modern fire department with modern life-saving protocols and stuff like that. We really do need a solution for that. And, with the impending VOTEC vote, it makes it kind of a kerfuffle with that too. So, but I just wanted to say that timing-wise, this has been a long-standing project that we've needed for many, many years. So.
Well, thanks again, Doug. And just to quickly mention, the little bullet points between the orange arrow and the bottom is just all the different phases of the design it would go through. So schematic design, design development, up through bidding, and then construction starting, and when it would be complete. So we'll start with this slide, which shows kind of where we sort of landed after initial studies with the building committee. We presented 6 different options and developed this. We've been calling it a sort of pros and cons matrix. The green being good, yellow being some drawbacks, red being obviously not good. And we presented this to Doug and the chief, and that was then presented to the Fire Station Building Committee, and then they came back to us with then 3 chosen options. And I just want to point out here quickly, so the 2 options on the left are for Church Street, then the 4 options on the right are for Union Street. So maybe just at first glance, Church Street was checking a lot more boxes for us, and a lot of these, the priority is health and safety separations, and the clearances that the chief was just pointing out. And as we went along, you see some of the white boxes in the bottom. As we went along, we got more information from some of our engineers and consultants, which we filled out. So these are the final 3 options, which we'll illustrate in a moment. Church Street on the left, an addition and renovation to Union Street in the middle column, and then a interior renovation to Union Street on the right. The biggest difference I want to point out is the Union Street options will never fully support the full-size apparatus that are needed, as the chief is mentioning. There will always be tight clearances. In the addition, we will get, the one thing we'll emphasize in a moment, is we will get a full-size bay, so at least one bay will be able to accommodate the new big truck. So there will always be drawbacks at building on the Union Street site, which is where a lot of those red cells are coming from. So 3 options. On the left, Church Street, the middle, the addition to Union Street, then on the right, the interior renovation at Union Street. And we'll go over the budget summary in a moment, or the cost estimate summary in a moment, but for total cost of the construction On the left, working with our cost estimator, came in around 21 million. The middle one came in around 13.3, and on the right came in just about 9.5. So we'll begin at Church Street. So it's really important for us to begin comparing where the previous study left off and where we began. So in the previous study, which I guess February of last year, the total square footage was about 33,000 square feet. And working really carefully with the original programming documents that Bob Mitchell helped put together, and with the chief and Doug, we were really able to squeeze out all the excess and get it down to a really tight a little over 25,000 square feet, which is a reduction of about 22%, which takes up about a little less than half of the site, the Church Street site, versus almost 2/3. And then other things like reduce the articulation of the building. There's a lot of costs associated with like the skylights of the old one, so we just tried to reduce it and make it simpler. You want to add, John? No. So each option will show a site plan, will show some plans and a couple images. On the site plan, so here we're looking at Church Street on the right, Howard Street on the left, north is to the right. The main objective here, and this is the same as in the old option, was to still the apparatus to pull out onto the main Church Street. Here the entrance is on Howard Street, and what we've done, and which is what's different from the previous option, is the parking lot is now no longer requires a variance. It fits. We're trying to make it fit into the neighborhood. The trees extend from the surrounding landscape, and the setbacks. Again, the building doesn't go into the setbacks.
And creating a buffer between the parking and the rest of the neighborhood, really, and even landscaping the parking. So it becomes a little more sensitive to the site that it's going into. Yeah, I'll show that in a minute in the aerial. In the plans, what we just want to highlight quickly, and this all goes back to the health and safety separations that are really important for kind of contemporary fire station design, is so in this drawing, the three colors, the red being what we call hot zone, so everything everywhere the firefighters go with their potentially contaminated equipment. The pink or the purpley color is the in-between zone, transitional warm zones, so vestibules, somewhat transitional storage. Then the blue is all the offices and upstairs living quarters. So the only thing I want to point out, well, in addition to making this a much tighter plan, working with Bob Mitchell, the square footages for each room are as small as they really can be. But one thing we're indicating. And just to say, they're as small as they can be because we actually put the required furniture in each of these rooms and made sure we had clearances around all the furniture. So these rooms are really tested with the actual equipment and furniture that needs to go in each of these rooms.
And yeah, we also like it. I mean, in the sense that it's the rooms they're not like generous, but they're efficient. And the one thing I want to point out as it relates to, Chief mentioned at the beginning, the training area upstairs in the existing station. So on the bottom left of the first floor plan would be the training room, which is within the boundary of where the public could access, and that's on where the red line is indicating. So that would have a public facing component in addition to being for firefighter training. So and in addition to King Philip being on display, the historic hand tub sled.
So on the left-hand plan at the bottom corner, that area could be the training room, but also public access room.
This area. And then I should just say quickly, right upstairs is mostly just firefighter living, bunk rooms where there's physical training, and then so all of those spaces ring the perimeter, and then all of the sort of back of house spaces, storage, would be in the middle. These two images are of the exterior of the Church Street option, the top being the view from Church Street. So we're looking at 6 new full-size bays with the Rockland sign above. Then the left is the kind of cap to that wing of firematic storage. I'll just go back quickly. On the bottom here is a ring of much-needed storage in addition to a watch room and a ready room, which are the two rooms the firefighters will either monitor the activity on the ramp or prepare for or fires. And then above would be the mezzanine area, which is where some of the training happens. And so that's what we're looking at here on the left. Then the bottom is the view from Howard Street, which is where the main entrance would be, where the sign is. And then one thing that was important to the fire station committee was that King Philip be on display. So one thing we kept in all options, or at least one of the first two options, was having that visible on Howard Street.
Can you show where that is in the elevation?
Yeah, sure. That would be in this front entrance.
Yeah, and that would be a glassy entry. It's looking very dark in this image, but it would be kind of glass and open to the lobby inside.
And this is a view, an aerial view, so Church Street and Howard Street intersecting, looking at the station. Again, what's really important when we're building in this residential neighborhood is that acknowledging the houses nearby. So we would have some separation between the station and the houses with a fence and a retaining wall. There's a slight slope on the site, in addition to, again, planting the parking lot, so it doesn't. So it fits into the neighborhood. So this is of the old. There's two different slides here of the estimates. This is the estimate that we received in 2023 for the old station. So this is for the 33,000 square foot station, which came in at $33 million for 33,000 square feet total cost of construction. We're showing this here because we want to compare if that project were to be built now or built when these other projects are being proposed to build with escalation, that would be closer to 36. So what was then $812 a square foot would now be $880 a square foot. If we compare that to what the station we just showed you, it's closer to 26. So about $10 million less. So that's comparing about $880 a square foot to $811. And then on the right, we've just, in the little column with the green and yellow, that's just an excerpt from that matrix we showed at the beginning, which shows all of the points of comparison for the different options. The middle option, which is the addition to Union Street, again, that one came in around 13.3 for the total cost of construction. No matter how, we tried very hard at the beginning to see what we could fit on that site. As you all know, it's a very tight site right in the middle of town. So the one option that we pursued with an addition wraps around the edge, and it would require taking the site behind it, 1115 Pacific Street, which, I don't know if Doug, if you want to speak to this now, but that would require a much longer conversation.
Yeah, so, this, I think, certainly adds a little something more to the station. As Kyle said, there'd be one bay that could actually accommodate the large apparatus. But the only way to do an addition, we have to comply with zoning, we need parking, et cetera. So there are one or two multifamily apartment buildings behind there. So there would have to be some sort of taking, if we were going to pursue something like this, like a friendly eminent domain taking. And we can talk more about that if this is an option you want to pursue, but we did have a rough estimate for what the damages would be, the cost of acquiring that property, because even if you take something by eminent domain, you still have to pay damages. And just by looking at the property record card, it was like close to $1 million in today's dollars. So that's going to add roughly $1 million to the cost of the project, but that is factored into the numbers.
Thanks, Doug. And I'll just add one thing. We tried many options where that wouldn't be the case, but to build on the site, we were required to include parking, and this is what we could fit. And this station, by adding to it, the total square footage just becomes about 22,000. So it'll never be as big as a Church Street site would. And a lot of that difference actually is just in the apparatus bays. So the space around the bays, the living quarters, and the storage is almost the same. It's just the lack of clearances around the bays that make up that difference. This is a site plan of this option, Union Street at the bottom, Pacific Street on the left. The yellow, again, is the addition. So on the right is the 1938 station, the 78 addition, which are bays 4, 5, and 6. And then our new 7th bay, which again would be that full-size bay, would be on the left, and the back would be the front entrance, and a new row of offices right now, which are not accounted for, or upstairs in the gathering space.
But this is actually kind of a good slide to illustrate the difference between the modern standards of an apparatus bay, bay number 7, versus the bays that exist in the current station. You can see how much wider it is because of the truck clearances and the safety needed clearances around the truck, but also the depth of the bay. And that is a minimum depth bay. It's smaller than the bays that we would propose new.
And just like the eminent domain question, this question of clearance or of building in this tight site, which per zoning we're allowed to build to the lot lines, we would want to do a deeper study into making sure that the turning radius could happen, the utilities could be moved as they would be required to move. Because as you all know, there's already a traffic light that stops traffic when the apparatus pulls out. So this would be a very difficult site to work in, but nevertheless, we think something is possible. And then, of course, the parking lot at the top, as mentioned before. So the two plans, following the same logic as the others with the 3-colored separation. I'll just point to this. This is that new bay we keep talking about here. So you would pull in here. The back, so this blue in the back is all that new now safely protected office space, which in the existing station obviously isn't. It's right off of the apparatus bay. And then one of the other big differences we're doing, Chief Duffy was showing the basement storage, or the lack of storage and how the basement is full. The basement also currently has the decon laundry where they decontaminate the equipment. So right now that would also be moved to dedicated spaces on the ground floor, which would free up a lot of that space in the basement, which should be next to the apparatus space anyway. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to.
Point out the entrance.
Oh, yes. And the other, like the first option, we have this red line indicating where the public can access. So there's a little public entrance here in the black, and then a separate firefighter entrance, again, just for separation as desired by the firefighters. But, whoops. Here, the public could access the main lobby, which would have King Philip on display, access to an elevator, which would take them upstairs to the training room / community room where meetings like this could happen, in addition to a lobby or a administrative office. And right now, the administrative office is directly off of the apparatus bay, which means the administrative assistant has to walk through the sort of diesel fumes. And this is a view from the corner, Pacific on the left, Union on the right, looking at one version of what that new bay could look like. In this image, we've kind of kept the language of the existing building with the brick and the granite.
One thing just to bring up on this is with this design, while we may gain a larger bay off of Union Street, we lose the back bay off of Pacific Street, which is still utilized during the winter for vehicle storage.
Thanks, Chief. And yeah, you'll see that in the last option we'll show in a moment. And this is just the aerial view of that option with the parking lot in the back. And one thing to point out here, we will never be able to fix also that ramp depth, the depth from the face of the building to the street. So that'll still persist.
Yeah, we still want to be able to fully take our ladder truck out, set it up. Currently, if we want to do any training with the ladder truck, we usually go down to the plaza, down to the Calvary Chapel Plaza. Maybe there's a potential that we could set it up at the rear yard, but now we're backing it in between vehicles. So, yeah, we still lose that space out front to do some training.
And this was the estimate for this option. What came in around 13.3 for the construction cost. That's about a little under $600 a square foot. And then these were, initial percentages to estimate a total cost of construction. Here one thing that's really important to point out is this 1.7 number, which applies to this option and the third option, which is a temporary operations facility, which means, the station is being renovated. We have to build a kind of temporary station elsewhere, which we got priced to be on the Church Street site. That would be, we've done this at Walpole and other stations, which would, it's not, it's a temporary facility, but it's not small, it's still, so that, the estimate for that was 1.7, and then you'll see that number again for the third option.
And that probably doesn't include the cost of heating it, because they're tents, right? So you have to blow hot air into these things to keep them warm in the winter. So these are costs that you don't get back. You spend the money, you spend $1.7 million, and it's money that you're not getting back in a permanent building ultimately.
Essentially what the temporary facilities would consist of would be a larger tent-like structure for the apparatus, and then trailers for the firefighter living spaces, and then trailers for administration work, to relocate the admin offices.
And then, as Doug mentioned at the beginning, there are two estimate numbers for neighboring the site, the acquisition of the neighboring site, and then the demolition of that site, that's what all adds up to get that roughly $20 million total project cost. Then our third option, which is just the interior renovation of the three. So if the first option was 25,000 square feet, the middle one was about 22, and the third one's obviously the same station it is now, just reconfigured to be to try to be safer, create safe separation. So just a couple notes on the site. We would do necessary repairs around the entrance to the bays, try to preserve as much as we can with the memorial and the tree in the front. The parking is going to remain as it is, and then per the request of the Fire Station Building Committee, we've tried to make the back bay, as you'll see in these plans, a usable bay. So that's this bay up here, as opposed to being like part ready room, part storage. In which case, what would happen is this back area would now need to be used for proper apparatus moving or truck moving, so it wouldn't be parking for the firefighters. So in this case, there's no public entrance arrow because there wouldn't be a sort of proper public entrance. What there would be at least a safe public entrance, which is where this black arrow is, which would be adjacent to the admin office. But the main thing we tried to do in this plan was just create safe separation between the spaces. So in this case, the administrative assistant can go to work without having to walk through the fumes of the bays. Upstairs, without getting into it, we just try to be more strategic with how we divide up the offices and give the training room at least its own area. That's this area here, as opposed to, Chief Duffy and the team having to move chairs and, stretch partitions around the room. And then the estimate for that again came in around 9.4, 9.5 for the construction cost, and then there's obviously the temp ops cost again, the 1.7, which ends up being about 14 for total project cost. And again, the one thing to emphasize with this option is the lack of clearances will persist. We're making it safer with the separations, but it's still the building the 1978 and 1938 building that you have now. These are the three. This could be looked at maybe better asynchronously, but these are again the three options compared, and then the summary of the three.
Thanks, Kyle. So we're almost done. The purpose of this slide is really just to show the cost of delaying and the cost of deferring this, which we've been doing in this community for decades, unfortunately. So you can just see to kind of keep it simple, if you look at the Church Street site, the construction cost, $20.8 million, right? If we wait 10 years, right, we're looking at, an $8 million, $7 million increase. So I won't go through and read all the numbers, but the point is, construction costs escalate significantly. The longer we wait, the more expensive it becomes. And we spend more and we're going to get less. So this, again, we need to fund this through a debt exclusion, whichever option we chose, you choose. What this particular chart is showing is in dark green, that's our existing long-term debt. So all of our debt. Phelps School, everything done in the past that we're still paying debt service on. And you can see that it's sloping down to the right, so our debt is declining. What's shown in the lighter green is our recommended option, which is the $26 million Church Street site. So that reflects the debt service for that new project. And this is a very similar graph to what I showed for the last project a year ago, which is if you just look at where we are now and draw that red line over to the right, you'll see that in about 8 years, even with that new debt for a new station added on to the tax bill, because our existing debt is declining, we'll actually be right where we are today. So I know other things go up, Prop 2.5 goes up, there could be other costs that, that affect taxpayers, but just as it relates to residential property tax bill, this shows that, within 8 years, even with this project being approved, we're actually at the same level of debt service, the same cost of taxpayers that we're at today. So I thought that was important to show. And then what I think, this is the last slide, what I think everyone's most interested in is, what could the cost be to the average taxpayer? So the assumptions we used are a 4% interest rate, which according to our financial advisors is a reasonable rate. And I see John shaking his head, which is good. A reasonable rate, given where, when we'd actually be looking at bonding. There's going to be future rate cuts with the Fed, et cetera. So 4% is in line. For this purpose, we can plug in any different kind of assumptions we want, but for sake of simplicity tonight, I just did a 30-year bond, level debt service, not the type of declining debt that you saw before, level debt service, and our current average single-family home is valued at $488,000. So for that average single-family home, the recommended option at Church Street would be a $226 per year tax increase. You can see for the addition and renovation, that goes down to $173 per year, and then $122 per year for just the renovation. So again, just to restate what we talked about a year ago, for anybody watching at home or in the audience, if your home is valued, and again, when I say valued, I don't mean Zillow, I mean the tax valuation from the town assessing department. If your home is valued at $488,000, these numbers are good. If your house is valued at higher than that, your impact will be higher than this by the same proportion. And if your home is currently valued at less than that, your tax impact will be lower than this. But this, again, it's based on the average single-family home value. If you decide to pursue a project and we go forward, we can do a lot more kind of sophisticated analyses like we did last time, but I thought the bottom line was probably what's most helpful for tonight. And that's really all we had. Again, I think that the main point we wanted to communicate was we heard the feedback that we needed to come back with something smaller and less expensive. We heard that. Some of this stuff will still work out fine. Other things are missed opportunities. For example, we had to cut out the mechanics bay. That's really unfortunate because that would actually save us operational money in the long run, but something's got to give. So we tried to be responsive, lower costs, lower square footage as much as we could while still making it a productive, worthwhile endeavor and not just building something new for the sake of something new that doesn't really add anything compared to where we're at. Our biggest concerns with the existing site, as Kyle and John and the chief said, is, the site is just too small. And while the addition does give a little bit of relief, taking homes by eminent domain is a big, big deal. And that's something that you'd have to really think long and hard about if you wanted to even take those properties. But even if we did, there's still a lot of inadequacies with the renovation and addition. And then, but the bottom one, again, just the simple renovation, it's a $14+ million project, and we're still stuck in a building that's woefully inadequate. So that's why, given the differences in impacts for the average taxpayer, to us, it's a pretty clear choice that building something proper, new at Church Street is the way to go. So with that, I'll stop talking and I'll turn it over to you guys for any questions you may have.
Do you have questions or comments from the select board?
So, yeah, I had a question. So if we keep our existing station, and you said you're going to build offices and such upstairs to separate, will it be divided by gender? Because I know that was an issue.
The office,
bunking?
the bunk.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
The way that we've looked at this would be to have the similar bunking, because that's the most efficient, and that's really all we can fit in there, but have a dedicated room that could be a female's room, or, you know.
Okay.
So it would have at least one gender-specific bunking.
Okay. And for the Church Street location, there's room for adding on in the future,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, absolutely. When we took that into consideration, when we were
Yeah.
looking at that option too,
Okay.
we could add on to the site
Yeah.
as, you know, in the direction, I guess, to the south, really, yeah.
Yeah, and like with the Inflation Reduction Act and such, is there any, are there any grants for solar? Like if you had a solar ceiling, could you
Yeah,
get?
we talked about that
Or
last
something,
time. I
yeah.
think that there are, this will be an all-electric building regardless, which means that if you can get a grant for solar, we can provide conduit to the roof, and you can put a solar array on the roof, you know, if you can get a grant for that. And it's an all-electric building, so you can heat and cool it with electricity, which means solar can contribute to the cost of heating and cooling. And I don't know if we ever ran operation costs on these. But certainly, a new building, insulated and with, you know, built kind of to today's standards, will be way more efficient than anything we can do with the existing building.
In the long run?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Other questions or comments?
Not that I think we should go with the middle option. How long would they be in the temporary housing, or that you?
It would be the duration of construction,
Yeah, how long
plus time to, in this case, you'd have to move everything out. So, you know, I think, what do we say, duration is probably in the neighborhood of 14 to 16 months these days. Plus, I don't know, what did he price, a year and a half probably? Something like that, yeah, about 18 months.
Okay, it's 18 months too long, I think, to
Yeah.
have our guys and women in that type of a temporary.
Yeah, and the trailers you're talking about for bunking are, they are, you know, they're rented trailers, so they're, these are tough conditions to be in. And there is no gender separation typically, available, so.
With that, do I have a motion to put the recommended Church Street project on the spring election and town meeting?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. All of my questions were answered, but in making this motion, I just want to make sure, just remind everybody, you know, Doug said it in the beginning, that make sure people know we're not going against town meeting. This is what town meeting asked of us to do. They asked us to go back to the drawing board and come back with a more cost-effective project, a smaller scale project. This is what the Fire Building Department Committee has done, and I think the Church Street location has always been the desired site, and that looks like the most efficient and best use of our tax dollars and for the future of the fire department going forward. So yeah, I'll make that motion to approve the Church Street Fire Station revised plan.
And do I have a second?
A second for putting it on the ballot for a special meeting.
And the town meeting?
So again, our recommendations for the spring annual election and the spring annual town meeting.
Okay.
Just to give us more time to
Yep.
do outreach with the community.
Yep, okay. So moved.
All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the vote tonight. That's